Stimulus checks have not gotten to anyone yet. We don't know exactly when they will, at least weeks from now. Some aid will be coming, but for many people, in just a day or two, they're going to desperately need that aid in the form of pending rent checks. Because, Francesca, it's almost the first of the month. Many people, millions of people, have lost their jobs, probably millions more since that report was filed, and they suddenly will have a very large bill that they're expected to pay very soon.
It's fitting that it's April 1st, right? April Fool's
Hmm.
Day, when people are supposedly having to pay rent in the middle of this pandemic, when 20% of the workforce, creeping up to 30, is out of work. Or yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't, for some people, like, I imagine people living in, like, expensive cities, like, that when they had a job, they were one emergency away, one much smaller than rent-sized emergency away from losing everything, and now the beginning of every month represents an unstoppable obstacle, passable obstacle. And there are some areas, thankfully, that have put halts on evictions. There might be some that have put halts on mortgage payments. That seems like even rarer. But thankfully, this cancel rent movement is starting to pick up some steam, at least in social media, with some elected representatives supporting it too. I wanted to give one of the tweets from AOC. I just don't understand how it's reasonable to expect what could be millions of people in small businesses who suddenly have their incomes cut off to pay rent, mortgages, and major bills on April 1st without any payment moratoriums or immediate relief. And she's not the only one. There was also, let's see, the freshman lawmaker has been working with state officials to try to get rent payments canceled by April 1st. Ilhan Omar and Bernie Sanders have also directly called for a suspension of rent, mortgage, and utility payments nationwide, in addition to stopping evictions and foreclosures. Senator Elizabeth Warren and other members of Congress joined Sanders' call for an eviction moratorium and student loan relief, although they have not called for a suspension of rent payments. So differences in response there. But I mean, how many people are going to lose their homes, lose their apartments in a
Yeah.
time when they're being told to stay at home, but soon they may not have homes to stay home at?
Absolutely. I mean, and I think that, there is a differentiation, right? Not every, landlord is like, has a giant building, a multi like $1 million like high rise, but like just in the same way that every business isn't, a conglomerate and a multinational organization that is going to, do very well with the stimulus budget and the stimulus money. Like, I think we need to do a better job of differentiating, you know, small businesses, and smaller landlords, and then the people who actually like can afford to not get paid this month. Like, you can afford it if you are renting out a giant high rise in New York City. I'm sorry, like, you can absolutely afford that.
Mhm.
And I know, walking in my neighborhood, like in Los Angeles here, like there are, already see the places, that the small businesses that have gone under just in the last 3 weeks, and the other businesses that are, doing everything they can. And this is one of those moments where I'm actually like, I think, especially when you see the way that Amazon is behaving, and especially when you know that there is a risk, for contraction or contracting the virus, because they're not taking precautions. It is a time for small businesses and to support your communities, locally. And yeah, and absolutely, the rent thing is part of that. Is part of keeping communities together and whole.
Yeah. And not throwing people out into, an uncontrolled pandemic right now. And sure, for especially for the smaller landlords, they might need, help on their mortgages if the rent is paying for that 100%. I saw Gabby in the chat was saying we need a freeze on credit scores for this time. I think that makes a lot of, like, if we are being asked as individuals to put our lives on hold, we need assurances that the rest of our lives will not be destroyed financially
Right.
as a result of it. And many people have not received that assurance. A check in 3 weeks. I saw Lila says they're talking 3 weeks to get checks out. I have friends that may be evicted before then. It's crazy. Yeah, a check 3 weeks after your rent was due is not going to save you. And best case scenario, if it does, it saves you for a month. But this is only a one-time check thing. There are so many ways that we are still standing on the edge of something that
Yeah.
our elected politicians don't seem to even be able to recognize is there. They don't realize
Yeah.
the great height that they're staring out over.
No, because why would they? These are the people who are selling off their stock, as we speak. These are people who are only care about like their portfolios. They can make rent just fine. I mean, and I think that's the other thing is like this all feels very unreal. Like somehow there's this really big disconnect between Washington and between everyday people and our lives. And I think no one is making an effort to close that disconnect. I mean, obviously, except for folks like AOC and Bernie Sanders and Ilhan Omar and others who are doing real work in their communities. But it's like there is this wide gulf of like, do you see what is happening in real time? April 1st is this week. People will be evicted, and there is still no action. Right? There isn't money in people's hands yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like there are all these ways that there will be huge knock-on effects on the economy. The only thing that the like Trump and his administration have landed on is we got to get people back to work or else something bad for the economy. Not, if millions of people are thrown out on the streets, that might have a negative impact. If, people's credit scores are destroyed, that might not have years or decades long impact on like all of these things. They seem to not be recognizing. Congress, what are they working on? Are they working on a bill right now, getting it ready for the first? No, I don't even hear conversations around it. And so, like, I think that we're right to point out, as we do on a daily basis, that Donald Trump is not taking this seriously. But there are only a handful of people who appear to really grasp the scope and severity of the crisis that we're facing, and far too many elected Republicans and Democrats think, yeah, it's pretty bad. We got to stay at home for a couple of weeks, but it'll be fine. Everyone will recover after that. Everyone has hundreds of thousands of dollars of savings that they can fall back on in a time of need. Surely they'll be okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, and I think you're going to see, and we are seeing, so a resurgence of a lot of like, worker actions. Like I know that Instacart is going on strike. Like the workers for Instacart are going to be striking. Mm-hmm. I know that I think Whole Foods workers are going to have like a sick out. Obviously that runs all the way up to Jeff Bezos himself. Like we are seeing what this country is made of, and when you have an economic system that is based on this amount of inequality and this amount of exploitation, and you add to that a pandemic, yeah, your billionaires are not your heroes. Your billionaires are trying to save their own asses, and they're trying to even make more money in this time of crisis off the backs of their workers. And I think that is putting everything into stark terms for folks who have to go to work every day and people like, grocers.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, like Zuckerberg gave a few million, right? That'll cover it. That'll be fine.
Shut down Facebook, man. You do us all a favor.
For more political news breakdowns, interviews, stories of activism, and me trying my hardest to care about the occasional big celebrity news story, subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/thedamagereport. And you can ring the bell wherever it is so you don't miss anything.